Hey, YouTube people. I don't do these things very often. There are guys who do better tutorials, so I'm not interested in trying to recreate all that. But I do have a specific style to my work, and I'm swapping through software here, so I thought it might be interesting for people to see how my puppets get set up and a little bit of my workflow. Um, I'll admit it's a little clunky, and there are a lot of things for me to figure out, especially in the audio uh, here. And you'll see some of that as you go through. If you watch this, you'll see some of the mistakes that I make, and you have to go back and try to figure out what I did wrong. But I've had this software for like 3 days now. I'm familiar with the type of software, so I know what to look for, but they all have their lingo, and you have to figure the layout out, and not all the tools work exactly the same, so it's common just to have a slowed workflow over the new software. So I'm not too particular about that at this point. What you're seeing here is part of my workflow is stemmed around the reusing scenes and puppets. So I can create the stories. My goal is to tell stories. It's not necessarily to draw pretty artwork, but the visuals kind of go along with it. You know, if you are into storytelling, a lot of times illustration just kind of goes along with it. I think that's probably common for most guys who are interested in this type of thing. And today we're able to do these things in our basement. So, you know, with a very simple layout and a little bit of time, I can reuse all these stages. So what you see here at first is I'm going through both of the characters and deleting the previous mouth shapes and the previous lines that were in there, so that they can receive something else to say. Now, this project, what I'm actually doing is bringing a couple characters in, to a couple of new puppets into the stage, so we can have a little bit of something going on here in the lobby. Tahoma seems to be holding up pretty well. I've had a few crashes with it, but as I add a few puppets at a time and a few objects at a time and create their movement, it seems like it's holding up pretty well. Before I lost my access to Adobe Animate, this particular stage was at its limit. The environment was hard to work in. Everything was kind of a click and wait type of ordeal, and that becomes very clunky. So I could go through and change some minor things, drop in new lines, and maybe change a little bit of movement here and there, but I couldn't add more to it. If I wanted to put anything else in there, I had to take something out. So I was at its limit in Adobe. I still have probably half of the objects that were in Adobe to put into this one. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as I approach that. So it looks like I'm bringing in the objects here, some chairs, some tables, adding some. I'm going to call them layers because that's what it's called in Adobe, but it's probably the wrong word for this software. I apologize for that. As I use it more, I will be more familiar with the lingo for this. But I've used Adobe for over a decade. It's really hard to break yourself of those things. For a table of chairs, or back of a chair, I think. Yeah, the back view of a chair. It piles them all in the middle for you. I'm not sure how convenient that is. That was very weird. My screen just went to the screensaver kicked on for some reason in the middle of this. I mean, I'm sitting here playing and recording. I don't know why the screensaver would kick on in the middle of that. I will have to admit I've never run OBX and the animation software at the same time. And OBX, if anybody who's played with that, it can be a system resource hog. And I was pretty impressed by how I was able to run the two together. And it probably slowed the render time down, but I really didn't feel it so much as I was putting things together. You know, a click equal to click. I wasn't waiting for anything, so that made me happy. That may not be true as I add more objects into the scene, though. All the objects you see here were drawn over the last year or so in Adobe Illustrator. They were all saved as PNGs, and I set my animations up this way with the idea that whenever you're done with school, you lose access to that delicious software. And if you build your scenes in Adobe Animate, if it's an Adobe Animate file, you can no longer open those up and mess with them in some other software. So I was aware of that very early, and I put everything together with that in mind. After looking at a little bit of software, I decided that saving PNGs looked like it might be able to save my personal library, so I can carry it with me to almost any 2D animation software. And there's not really that many 2D animation softwares out there, and some of them are better than others, so I don't know if that's true. What am I doing here? I'm turning them into their own group. Oh, no. Not yet. It looks like I'm starting to look for characters now. So I got the backs of a few characters. You gotta go find them. Like I said, all this stuff is already drawn. I just gotta remember where it's at. I drew these things probably literally a year ago, so they're hidden in folders, buried in files on my external hard drive. And after you build the scene, you no longer have to go dig these things up. But now that I've got to rebuild the scene, I've got to go dig them up. So, and it's a piece of advice to give to to everybody out there and myself for the future, naming your files something that you could remember later, it's quite helpful. In fact, you're probably watching me right now go through and look for something because I'm looking for the back of a specific character right now, and I don't know how I named it. I'm seeing the character's face and the front of her body, but I'm not seeing the back. So I probably named it like back, and or it somehow changed the way it was spelled to where I can't find it. But you know, I could have saved myself some time there, but you see, it doesn't really take all that long to mess up and have to go back, so it's not really a big deal. Because there it is right there. I think I got it on the wrong layer here. I haven't quite figured out how to move these levels around each other. So basically, I'm copying one level, then deleting it and put it where and pasting it back in where I wanted it. I don't know if that's the easiest way to do it. In Adobe, I would have just drugged the level down to where I wanted it, but it doesn't seem to work that way in this one. So there may be some setting or something, or maybe I got to push a button to make that work or something, but I haven't figured that out yet. Character the right size to fit with the table. I think everything has to be messed around with here eventually. The next character will be a little more interesting because it's a full puppet, and I actually dumped some lines of audio into it so that it'll look like she's, you know, they're talking to each other from this perspective. So it'll be a full puppet build. There'll be a little bit of animation, not very much because, I mean, she's sitting at a table, of course, but there'll be a little bit of animation. I'll make her head move a little bit. It'll be, the next puppet will be a lot more interesting. That one's not really even a puppet. That's just a PNG of the puppet. Like, I can't move the arms and the legs with that one. You're about to see what it looks like whenever you bring all the parts in here after I get done messing with the sizes here, scaling the sizes and trying to make that look more appropriate. Like I'm getting ready to set up for a more complete puppet. There's keyboard shortcuts to all that, but I haven't figured them all out yet. I think that one's insert. I'm not 100% certain, so. she is. The bits and pieces to a puppet. You can kind of see it all laid out there. It's a good shot. All the parts are laid out there. I think there is an easier way to bring these in and set up the parenting. I haven't figured out the workflow on that yet, but it may be easier to drag the parts in, set up the parenting, and then put the parts where they belong. Because you'll see here at some point that when I go to set up the parenting, that it explodes the character. The parts go off to someplace else. I don't know what it's doing. It has something to do with the relations of their centers, their respective centers. But you see, I put them where I want them first. But I think whenever I set up my next puppet, I'm going to try to drop all the bits and pieces together. It'll drop them in the center on top of each other, and then I'll set up the parenting. And then I'll do this. Because you'll find that here in a minute, whenever I go and try to set up the parenting, I have to go back and redo all this anyway, so. A little trick to make it reverse, you go up there and make one of those values. If you want it to be vertical, you make one of them negative. If you want it to be horizontal, you make it the other one negative. So you only have to draw one like I'm drawing. There's one forearm. So now she's got a right forearm. And I probably could have copy and pasted that thing, but for some reason I wind up and do this the long way. I go back and I set up another layer for the left forearm. Gotta rename everything. And then I drop the same file in again, where I probably could have copy and pasted that. And you go up, you change that to the negative again. You see that it mirrors it horizontally. Now it's a left forearm. So you don't actually have to draw. You just draw half of them. Unless you want unless you do like tattoos or something like that. Or if you have writing, because you can't reverse it if it's got like a logo on it or something like that, like for the shoes. Like if you put a Nike symbol and then you try to reverse it, makes a backward Nike symbol. So you got to wind up and draw a left and a right shoe if you're going to do things like that. Potato hands. I keep this stuff as simple as possible. There's better artists out there, so I let them do their thing. I just want to tell stories. I'm going to reverse that, put it where it goes. Now you'll see this happens right here. I think I'm about to work on the parenting on this. This was a little easier in Adobe too. I'm not sure why they didn't do something similar. It's not hard to do in Tahoma, but this view is can be a little rough because you lose some of those boxes and it doesn't put enough of the letters in there, and it could be difficult. You definitely don't want to put a whole bunch of things in there and then try to go parent, because man, you would be lost. You want to work a little bit at a time and make sure you keep up with it. You can actually see in the background behind that my bits and pieces are running away from me as I move and connect You know, like the shoulder, the hand to the forearm, and the forearm to the shoulder. So you can see it happening as I go and do these, make these adjustments here. It gets worse with the head. You see what I mean? You have to keep zooming that thing out, and it stretches them all up and down a line there. So if you put all those characters together and then decided to do the parenting there, it would be a nightmare. I couldn't imagine. You really have to do them all together. I'm sorry, one at a time. And doing part of the body or a little bit of the body at a time kind of helps too, because like I said, you get so many of these little boxes, it becomes hard to see. And the scene's barely started here, so collapsing some of these things into groups kind of helps, because it'll show them as groups, and you'll see that I think the dark blue is, those are all like other characters and other groups of things, if I'm not mistaken. So some things are already grouped, like those things would explode into something else if you could open them up. You can see that there's more things behind it. I'm not really sure why I do that, but visually it helps to reassure that you've got it parented correctly whenever you see it visually like that. So I do like that aspect of it, but the visual aspect of Adobe's was pretty easy to look at too. But there's one down the line, and you just drop things from their layer on the control panel of the layer. So it seemed like that was a little bit more intuitive, a little quicker and easier to do the parenting. Much easier to keep track of your parts too, what part goes where, because the layers would all be together. Whereas those boxes, it just kind of lines the things up. You can see how things are moving together now, so the parenting is working. Like the hand is moving with the forearm. I just need to adjust where the hand's center is at, so it'll look right. You can do a quick check on the body, I think, here when it's done, just to make sure everything looks like it's connected. I give my characters the South Park slide. I don't bother giving them leg motions. I have to thank those guys for making it okay to have bad drawings. Alright, it looks like I'm about ready to start bringing her head in here. So what I learned with this software is if you get the image sequence named properly, so I have that as I.001, I.002, I'm sorry, it's I.0001, I.0002, and I.0003. 0003. So the software recognizes that as a sequence, and whenever I pick one of them up and drag them over, it drug all three of those I files, the PNGs, with me. See, they're down there. I'm going to put them up there in a place. Kind of a waste of time because it winds up and gets blown away whenever I go and do the parenting later. But I decided to bring the original head in, a completed shot of the head, so I can remember how things were kind of oriented whenever I first drew it, before I tore it apart and turned it into a puppet. It's a little bit easier to position things pretty much like it was on that. You see the puppet has no hair. I'll show you why here. Whenever I put the hair on, what happens. Basically, I'm making the blink happen, adding a few keyframes so it doesn't happen quite as quickly. So that those, whenever those, the eye move, or the eyes, one of them's, there's three frames to make the eyes blink. There's open, and then middle, and then closed. So all I gotta do is run that sequence and they blink. And then you run that sequence backwards and they open back up again. And then I can copy that sequence. And for some reason I couldn't get it to select what I wanted to select there for a bit, but you copy that sequence, and then whenever you drag your timeline out a little ways, you can just paste that blink in a few times, and then you loop. You go about 15 seconds out and give it 2 or 3 blinks in that 15 seconds, and then you loop it for the rest of the time. So it becomes something that occurs automatically. So I see I'm dragging it out there a little bit. I'll get it. I can't tell what the numbers are exactly. I'm going to guess it's 4 or 5 seconds in. I'm going to paste another instance of the blink. I'll drag some out. I'm trying to deselect the group there. Oh, it looks like I'm going to do it. Maybe I'm going to do a double blink. Or I'll paste it in. Just drag a little bit out and then paste it in again, so you get a double blink. And drag it out some more. And now you're looking for about 15 seconds worth of frames or so, maybe 10, I don't know. Something to where it doesn't look incredibly cyclic, cycle. You can't see the cycle so easily. And these are only a minute long, so it's only going to play that cycle. If it's 15 seconds, it's only 4 times, so hopefully nobody would notice that after watching it once or twice. Surely nobody would notice that. There's probably another way to go about doing this. I've found a couple ways to go about doing it. Actually, you can drag that little thing out there too, and it'll work. But it seemed like just copy and pasting the frames seemed to do the trick. If it was literal keyframe movements and not frame changes, and you might. There's another trick that it gives, but it doesn't seem like it works with the frame changes. Now, you can see here where I just drag it out. Whatever you have selected, whenever you drag that end out there, it'll just repeat that. So now that puppet has eye blinks. A minute worth of eye blinks. Alright. Looks like I'm about to bring the eyebrows in. I'm going to go through and change the names on this one for the software sequence. Adobe might have something like that too. I was just unaware of it. I used it for so long, and sometimes those little tricks and things like that, you don't go looking around for it because you're not aware it's there. I'm guessing it did. So because I changed into the proper sequence format for the software, it dropped them all together into their own keyframes, and there it is. Put eyebrows on there. Now you just go through and do the same thing you did with the eyes. You add keyframes to make the eyebrows do a little bit of movement here and there. That's my squeaky chair. I don't have any real good rules of thumb on this. I try to make it somewhat random between the characters so they're not all blinking and moving their eyebrows all at the same time. So I try to go, maybe some of them I'll drag out to 20 seconds and mess around with it. Some of them I'll do it at 10, and some of them I'll put long. They don't do much of anything, and other ones I'll make them their face a little more animated. But these little changes I try to make, that's the only thing I try to keep in mind as I put these puppets together and lay out the animations. I try not to make them all look exactly the same as much, if possible. I mean, they're all made using the same process and techniques, so they all look like they're made by the same person, but I don't want them all blinking in unison. You can see the difference between a selected area and a not selected area is there is a difference, so you can see it, but it's kind of subtle at the same time. So sometimes I'm not, like, I didn't catch it there, like you're pasting over what you basically just pasting over what you just copied because you forgot to select the new spot for it to originate from. Alright, so now I'm bringing the hair in, and the reason I separate the hair, and I don't do this on every single character, every single puppet, but a lot of times on girls, they have hair that is more in their face, and while her eyebrows are not under the hair a lot, they are a little bit, and I wanted the eyebrows to be able to move underneath the hair and make it look right. So I just separated the hair and put it as a separate file so that I could drop it back on top. It's fairly simple to do. Now I'm going to look for a mouth set. I've got, these are all mouth sets that I've drawn. There's a few of them that work better than others. And that one's already got the proper, it's laid out properly for the Visemes. There's guys who explain how to set that up, but the file names need to be right, and the Viseme mouth shapes need to be in the right order so it lands into the software nicely. I mean, you can make those changes in the software, but if you do it right and set it up right, everything just kind of falls into place, as you're about to see here. So I dropped the Visemes in, and the mouth is probably down in her belly button or something right now because it's dropping everything into the middle of the scene. So I got to go up and I'm going to grab the mouth. Or go down, I guess. Put it where I want it. Maybe resize it a little bit because that looks a little rough. So those appear to be doing what they do. So I don't actually have any lines for this particular puppet. There was no she doesn't actually have any lines because it's just a background character, like a cameo. So it was really just go into the last place where I had pulled in audio from and drop in random lines and spots across the timeline so that it would look like she was talking from time to time. So that's what you're about to see here. I'm trying to decide where. I don't know why I always drop them in a couple seconds in so that it's not right at the top of the frame, but for her it really wouldn't have mattered. That's just pure habit. So, and now I'm just dropping in random audio files. I gotta get the right layer selected, and there might be an easier way to do this. I don't know if it'll batch run these things in one after another if you drop a couple of them in there or not. I haven't tried that yet. But, I mean, this really doesn't take that long, so it's not really that big a deal either. So here, just go through the... It's only a minute worth of video, so... I'm only talking about 6 or 8. Dropping that file in 6 or 8 times. And I didn't even really care what she was saying because I just wanted the mouth to move. Looks like I'm finally saving this file. Not a very good idea. I haven't had too many problems. I mean, it's only crashed 2 or 3 times with me in the past week, but I'm not gonna kid you. I had Adobe open for days at a time, and never really had too many problems with that. It crashed every once in a great while, but like it was so rare that, like I said, I would have it open for days at a time. And this software, I don't feel like I'm going to get that kind of leniency. It seemed like it's a little bit less stable, but definitely want to save. If you're trying some Tahoma out for the first time, definitely save. I finally got that. Now, so Tahoma makes this real nice. It's actually a third-party plugin called called Rhubarb. So that's what you're accessing here. Because I set up all the Visemes properly, they laid out in that grid there for me, nice and neat. Everything's lined up the way it should be. So it's assigning Visemes to frequencies or to sounds. I'm not sure exactly what it's doing, but it's doing something there. But, Adobe Animate did that. I want to say I had to go through, and it was about a C or so. It wasn't terrible if you just left it alone, but it could be better if you went back through it. This one is probably a D-. It doesn't fail, but it leaves a lot of work left whenever it's done. Now, for what I'm doing here in these particular clips that you're seeing here over the next few days, little details like that are probably not going to bother me a whole lot. You can see where I'm doing the parenting here. I just parented the hair and it just went flying. It just disappeared in the background there. I don't know if you're noticing that. Here I'm parenting eyes, and the mouth just disappeared on me. The eyebrows just disappeared on me. And there go the eyes. So when I come back out of this, you'll see that when I get out of the that screen there, I can't remember what the heck that's called. I know where it's at, but I don't know what it's called. Oh, there they went. Look at that. It's a nice, neat face way up there. Now, again, there's probably some way, if I knew the software better, there's probably some way I could snatch that up like it is and just drag it down to where it needs to be, all of them, but it seemed like, yeah, it just grabs one. I couldn't get them all to go, so I didn't fight with it. I just moved them down there. Not a huge ordeal. Probably, like I said, it probably could have been more. Just probably could have been a lot cleaner if I'd have done this more, but for no more time that I've got invested in this software, I'm happy getting results, period. And I'm guessing that most guys would probably agree with that. If you notice down there, my marker in my timeline is out a few frames. It's not on the first frame. That's something to be aware of as you put these puppets together and you put your pieces together, because as you'll find out here, I'll wind up with a the mouth will wind up with an extra piece of animation. And as you see, I just animated that shrink down there in the lower left corner. That line between the first frame and the playhead indicates, you can see it. Now I've caught what I've done. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to delete that keyframe, but it makes her big again, unfortunately. And I got no answer for why that happened whenever I brought it back. But here we go again. Like I said, I think the parenting, if I had done the parenting first and then done the positioning, I think that I might have saved myself some hassle on this. I'm not 100% certain, but the next time I go and set a puppet up here, probably tonight or tomorrow, I'll wind up and do that in a different order. So if you're counting, that was the third time I had to reposition all those bits and pieces there because of my workflow. I think that was the third time. Yeah, the third time. Something didn't get parented right. I think that the eyes were missing. It wasn't big enough. The little viewer this gives me, you just can't see it. Panels menu. It's called schematic. That is called a schematic. That's what that is. There we go. So you go over to panels, schematic, and it gives you that thing that does the parenting there. I'm sure it does other things too, but that's what I was using it for today anyway. See how it moved there? I had an extra keyframe. I dropped a keyframe in there because I had that head out. So yeah, having that playhead out there on frame 10 that whole time caused me to have extra keyframes a couple times. I don't know if you caught that or not there, but that's what happened right there. Because I had that playhead out a little ways, I wound up and had to. There it is. That would be the fourth time on that mouth, I believe. Trying to get it where I want it. But I think we're making progress. The puppet appears to be in one piece. That's a little girl, so I gotta get her sized right to be a little girl. Not a giant. You notice I forgot to put the coffee on that table. I don't know why I didn't notice that till just now, but I didn't give them anything to drink at the coffee shop. looks like I'm going to try to set up a little bit of posing and probably just a little bit of arbitrary head movement. Yeah, okay, so here's, since I'm messing with one object and putting keyframes in for its positioning, it's slightly different than changing little frames. You know, when I'm doing the eyes, you're flipping through like a flip book pictures, literally flipping through the pictures. Other animators would draw that into the software and then animate the eyes closing, which is, you know, probably desirable, but then you're stuck with that animation software. So that was why I picked this. By using the pictures, I could take the eyes for these puppets and all the puppets with me. So what you just seen there was I moved the head a few times out there, and then on that last one it allows you to click a repeat the cycle, and now for the entire minute, because I put a few keyframes in the first 15 or 20 seconds, it'll just repeat that cycle for the entire minute. So now you got to do the same thing with I'm gonna put an arm up on a table there, it looks like. I disappeared there to feed the cats or something. They must have come down to bug me for breakfast. Because that was a long pause. A little bit of motion in another puppet, that's what I'm doing there. Just making it to where they kind of wiggle back and forth. Again, because I'm changing the keyframes and the motion of the object, not changing the object at the frames. Whenever I come down to 15-20 seconds or so after giving it a few different slight changes, I can hit that last keyframe and tell it to repeat the cycle. And you see that line that goes out to the right there? That's that repeat the cycle. And watch as I scrub. She should keep moving. There she goes. So, that's a pretty slick feature there. I don't know that Adobe did that. You built the symbols, and then the symbols had cycles that they could run. It's kind of a different way to go about it. I'm trying to decide what I'm doing here. Oh, I created a group called Table 1, or what is that called? They're not groups, they are... I'm going to pop open here and see what that is called. They're just called scenes. So that's what it appears to be, scenes and subscenes. So I created a subscene within the main scene called table. And that table 1 has those two characters, those two puppets in the table. So now it appears I'm what am I doing with it? It looks like I'm looks like I'm trying to make so you can clone the subscene, which is what I just did. Now you'll watch when I get the new one, I'm going to call it table 2. It took me a little bit to figure that out and remember that's what I was doing and find the button evidently there. I should be able to pull the entire group over. Check that out. So all the animation and all the things that those puppets do went with it. So if I wanted to leave that copy of them there, I could, but that would kind of look funny to have the same people sitting next to each other in a cafe. So I just wanted the table to come over. And it's a little closer, so I scaled it up a little bit. So I'm about to bring in another puppet here to put in to that table. Bringing in a third table. No puppet. Now you can see I'm in table 2 subscene at this point. And I'm looking for a Wednesday Addams puppet because I have Wednesday Addams from behind. So again, it would have been nice to have named these more appropriately maybe at some point in time, but you know how this works. I mean, if it's not called Wednesday, then it's called back or behind. So you put one in, and then if it's not there, you put the other one in. Yeah, running out of options. This one's got to be the one here, right? Well, there's the back of her head anyway. Yeah, it was another long break. Maybe that was when I was feeding the cats. I don't know. Could probably trim those out. But that would require finding them again. forearms and biceps. Doing a little bit of parenting. It's the schematics panel. I think I got that right this time. I'm not sure if I learned my lesson last time or what, but I'm trying to do it earlier or something. I don't know. No, I didn't learn my lesson because the head just ran away. I did leave the arms over there, though. You see that, right? So that happened. Look at that. The arm just was in the middle. Now it's probably sitting right in the middle of her body. So that's what happens when a reparent is they go in and go. But seeing as how you have relocated them somewhere else, their origin points become confused in some way or another. So this wasn't really an issue in Adobe, and there's probably some way to there's probably something going on there that I can make this not happen. But as I said, I've been messing with this for a short time, and right now I'm just chugging forward. We'll find the correct answers along the way. I'm going to do forearms. I don't think I bothered with the hands because you can't even see. You can barely see the forearms. So, but you can see them a little bit. So I went ahead and put them in there. Into the schematics to parent the forearms to the biceps. Technically, I drew these arm parts for the front view of the body, but they work equally well for the back view. You just have to put them on the other side of the body. Instead of in front, you put them behind. looking for a laptop for her to work on. I got to put a spot in there for the laptop to live, so gotta add some levels. We'll call them levels? Is that what you call them? I don't know. You have to take my language here with a grain of salt. I may be confusing it with God knows what at this point. I put the laptop on the wrong side again, so you can see I want to be able to drag it, but I don't know how, so I just copy it and then paste it back in where I want it and delete the one that's on the wrong side. Yeah, now the laptop's on the right side of her. Now I need to have something on the screen for the laptop. And again, all these things are things that I've drawn, but here's something, you know, I wanted something that looked like she was typing into the web or something, so I just took a picture of my own YouTube page. So I didn't actually draw this, I just took a picture of my YouTube page and stuck it on her laptop. Create a new layer and go and drop that picture of the YouTube page that I just took. That little control module in there in the middle that I keep manipulating to change the origin center. It does the origin center, it does the location, it scales, it skews, it rotates. So it does all those things. In Adobe, if you're familiar with that, it uses the bounding box, and then the mouse emblem itself will change as the function's changing as you navigate the bounding box. So I don't know if I like either one any better than the other. Seems like the open source stuff likes that origin center in that way. Blender has something similar going on, although it breaks those functions apart. It doesn't have them all together like this one does. Just a little bit of enough of the laptop poking out so you can tell what she's up to there. creating a subgroup for the laptop. You can see all these different levels. If they were all exploded and just laid out, it would be so many different levels in there. It would be hard to track everything, so grouping everything together is handy. Let's see, what am I doing here? A little bit of head movement. So again, since I'm going through and making changes to the position of the object with keyframes, not changing the object itself with the keyframes. So when I said with the eyes, I'm changing the object itself, literally flipping one picture for the other like a flipbook. With this one, all I'm doing is taking the same object and rotating it a little bit about its origin axis. So it'll allow me to hit that repeat out there when I get out to 10 or 15 seconds. So her head will just move through the entire minute, and I don't have to animate more than the first 10 or 15 seconds of it. So, if you was going to do this for a long scene, you probably would want to customize more of it. But for a minute, there's just not enough time to catch all those cycles that are going through. Nobody's going to notice that they're blink on a blink cycle or a head movement cycle in a minute's time. You might now that I've told you, though. You see, and it's indicated by that white line clear out at that last keyframe whenever I told it to repeat. So I did the head movement now. I'm going to go through and a little bit of bicep movement. Something else about this that is different than Adobe, and I don't know if there's a setting in there that to change the way this happens, or if it just is the way it is. I'll have to do some messing around with it to find out and decide whether or not I like it this way or not better. But it automatically interpolates between keyframes, and I didn't do a whole lot of interpolation between my keyframes with Adobe because it takes processing power, and I'm running this on a laptop, and I do have a graphics card in this thing, but I'm still limited to what kind of what I can do with it. So all the interpolation creates more frames, more math for it to calculate. So I didn't do that with Adobe so much. Well, this automatically puts the interpolations in, so I use that a little bit more. So you'll see that instead of making a keyframe go, I'll put a start and a stop, and then I'll put the motion a little ways out from the stop, because if you just put two keyframes, it moves slowly from one to the other. So it takes a pair of keyframes to make this work. That's why you keep seeing two pairs of keyframes. There's a spot where the motion does nothing in between in the middle, and then that small gap between the frames is where it moves. And I used to do it, basically it would be, one frame and then another. Now I give it a few, I've been giving it a few frames so it's a little smoother animation. I don't know if I'll stick with that. It's the way the software is set up, so it's easier that way technically. That's why I'm doing it. But I don't know if it's gonna be easier on my processor. Like, what's gonna happen is I fill this room up here with more and more characters and more little movements like this. So you start adding all that together, and the processor and the computer's got to deal with all that. I'm not looking to take 3 days to render anything. And sometimes you set these up and you realize it looks bad later. In fact, you'll see a little bit of jerkiness in Wednesday from having keyframes too close together whenever this renders out. And I'll probably go back and change that now because I know it's there, but I didn't bother changing it for this particular project because the project was just to get my characters into some space here. Not entirely sure what I'm up to there. I'm getting errors for something, probably because I didn't have something copied or something like that. Like I said, some of the functions and some of the features are not exactly Adobe-like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I keep saying that, but it's this is a different software, and it has every right to do as it does. But I've used Adobe for so long, it's just things. I go for things that I'm used to, and I'm guessing that probably most of you guys are doing the same thing. And I'm not disliking this software for an open source free software that you can download and do these things in your basement. This is absolutely incredible. It looks like I was trying to group some things, clean some things up there. That's what it looks like I'm doing. Oh no, I'm giving, there we go. Yeah, I was cleaning that scene up. Now I'm giving Wednesday a mug of coffee. I gave her a mug, but I didn't give the other table a mug. So I drew that mug of coffee. It was a subsequence already drawn, and you can copy that sequence and drop it into another subsequence, and that's exactly what I just did. So now the only problem with that is, like, if you had 10 cups of coffee sitting next to each other, they would all steam at the same rate. So there's no difference in the way the animation looks whenever you do that. So it'd be one of those things, if you had a bunch of them kind of close together, you might go in there and throw a few things off, like offset the timings on it or something. So there's things you can do, there's things you can do to adjust that. But you know, I got these cups, one's on the counter and the other one's on the table, so it's not like two cups sitting next to each other steaming at the same time. It looks like I'm getting ready to set up for camera motion here. It's not easy to see in this software. There's a thin red line that indicates what is going to export, and I know that you're probably just now noticing that, but now you're seeing it, that thin red line that's being manipulated and moved around there is set up for YouTube Shorts, a vertical 1080 by 1920 for YouTube vertical shorts or TikTok vertical shorts, but YouTube specifically because they won't let you do anything else with this. I don't believe me. At least the last I knew they wouldn't. So I'm setting up what area of my stage I want the camera to look at. And you, if you're familiar with any of the animation software, right now I'm going through and I'm going to animate it a little bit so that you can get a close-up of a couple characters, and it'll move. So hopefully it'll move. I keep forgetting, but you can change the way the interpolation works. It'll ease in and ease out and things like that. It's real easy to do here. In Adobe, that's a little clunky. So that's kind of nice. The interpolation changes are real easy to do here. Shouldn't say it's clunky in Adobe, you just got to know where it's at. With this one, it just kind of pops up in your face when you click on those lines there. I haven't messed with that in here yet. Those are aspects of animation that make things look smoother and feel more realistic, and there's nothing realistic about my work. And again, my goal in this exercise was to get more puppets activated within this stage. Save often. I already saved it. Now, but I'm going back in again here and render. I do a render and save, or save and render. I don't know if it saves first and renders or whatever, but I save it, then I go and render it, because this is I tried one called OpenToonz, and OpenToonz and Tahoma are closely related. In fact, you really can't even tell the difference between them. But OpenToonz is more, it's better known, it's had more downloads, and it's at a later version. It's at like version 7 or something like that, where Tahoma is at like version 1. So this is like a spin-off of OpenToonz that happened sometime fairly recently, but I couldn't get OpenToonz to render anything, and there's some documentation out there on these, but not near like there is for Adobe or Blender. So if you need a lot of documentation, these things are going to probably drive you nuts. But I tried everything that was there. I am not a programmer, just a guy that likes to use these tools. So I generally find the easiest path, and so I saw that Tahoma was another version and thought I'd give it a shot. And what do you know? I'm fairly pleased with this. I'm getting exports out of it. It's doing what it's supposed to do. We can see it's exporting there now. I'm fairly certain that I've cut some of this out or sped some of this up. I hope I did anyway. Yeah, I can see the clip about to end here now. I don't know if I sped it up or cut it out, but interesting. I really don't need all this render in here. Or I could speed it up. I'm going to do something with that. Oh, that's hilarious. Right as I say that, here it is. So I didn't want to just render the test clip as it was. I was like, I got to tell a joke or something, so I decided I would ask ChatGTP, because I'm not really doing any writing for this. I thought I'd ask ChatGTP to tell me a coffee-themed joke. So I asked it to tell me a sassy one, and it gave me a joke, and then I told it back. I wanted it to be sassy, not lame. So I have this little conversation with ChatGTP as I try to figure out, a couple of lines to drop onto my character puppets. And they kept giving me some odd stuff here. Yeah, if you've ever messed with ChatGTP, I think that my statement down there at the bottom pretty well sums it up. The funny thing is I keep going back to it because it does help to spark an idea pretty quickly. Like, I had no lines for these two. I could have just put some random lines in there, and I don't know that it would have been any better or any worse had I spent just a couple minutes here with chat first. So I thought I would add this in there so you can see some of the process. I don't write this way all the time, but every once in a while, whenever the purpose of my project is not focused on writing and I need some context or something, then I will go to chat to speed things up for me. Chat will help to it'll help get you in a direction. I don't know if you can read the context here that he's given me. Trust me, it's not great. It says, customer, can I get a double shot of espresso? The barista, sure thing. Are you looking for a pick-me-up or trying to revamp the laws of physics? No, rewrite the laws of physics. Sorry, the text is so small and my eyes are not great. I needed the joke to be between two baristas because I don't have a customer at the counter yet to talk to the barista. That will be the next thing I do. Try to bring a customer back in to talk to. And that's fairly easy. Technically, it requires setting up a whole nother stage so you can see them from the other angle, because in 2D you can't just spin the camera around. You have to draw another stage, the flip side view of it. And because I've already drawn it, all I got to do is set it up. Okay, so here's one where I decided I kind of liked it, but I didn't like quite the way it was. So it says, Barista 1, did you hear about the new coffee blend we're offering? And Barista 2 says, yes, it's apparently so smooth it apologizes for waking you up in the morning. And Barista 1 says, well, I guess it's perfect for those who need a caffeine-induced apology in their lives. So, yeah, I was like, nah, that's not just sassy, it's snide. So, and somebody smooth wouldn't be apologizing for anything. They wouldn't have a need to apologize. They're smooth. Somebody who's smooth don't apologize. So I don't think chat quite gets the context on that one. asked it to kind of go through that again. But you'll see from the what I actually end up with, and when it's said and done. That was the direction I went. So ChatGPT did help spark the idea. Caffeine blend is so smooth that it could charm the caffeine out of a snoring sloth. No way. More smooth than James Bond. No. Frank Sinatra, no. I mean, like, come on. I go back up and kind of get the gist of that one back up there. And I probably think I move on here. Hear the gears grinding in my head right there as I work this out. Oh no, I ask it to finish it a couple times. I take the line and ask it to finish it a couple times. Okay, this is funny because I break it. And then it asked me if it was good. He asked me a little survey question. I was like, no. All right, and then I move on. I remember what happens here. I don't know if you've ever seen that before, but that always makes me laugh. It's like, I don't know if it's triggered after so many times asking the same question, or it's like, it's pretty obvious because I keep asking the same question that I'm not happy with the response. We keep going around and around about the same thing, kind of. But I don't know if ChatGPT really understands a conversation as a whole. I think that's a misunderstanding. It'll easily forget what you said like 4 or 5 lines up the way again. That's why I went and copy and pasted it to get it back on track. So I got what I needed out of it, though. It got me sparked in the right area. Now I'm going into Fake You. For those of you who recognize these here, I use the Tifa Larkar and Peggy Hill voices for these 2 characters here. They work out really nice, and they respond pretty easily, and they are easy to understand, so I stick with them.
Hey chatbot, Have you heard about the new coffee we have?
Yeah, apparently it's so smooth it won a Grammy for Best R&B
So
album.
I got the voices dealt with. You give them a home. And this is fairly simple to get it into the software, but I've struggled with the audio a little bit. I need to watch a couple of videos on it, see if I can't figure out what I'm missing here. Uh, it doesn't appear to want it. It doesn't allow me to. I can't. I want to put this in ways that doesn't make sense or are wrong, but I have failed to figure out how to make it sync from a subset to a subscene to the main scene. So what I'm saying is the mouth parts part of the character in its subset and then putting the audio into the main scene. And then whenever you put the audio into the subscene, for some reason it doesn't play whenever you're looking outside of that subset. So what I've been doing is going through and copying or go through and I set the lines into their character subscenes, and then I copy the character line and bring it uh, up to the main scene. So the audio will actually live in two places in this file. See, now it's on the main scene, those lines. And it also does some odd things like uh, for some reason it'll play one line but not the other whenever it's like that. And then I've made some changes and it does. And I don't even know what I changed to make it work, but it worked. So I don't know. Those are all things that I'm going to have to do a little bit of research into the audio. What's going on in the background here that I'm missing out on because the audio is kicking my butt, no doubt. So something to watch for on this. Here's something to see on this character here. You see that I ran Rhubarb, the third-party software, to link, but it didn't put the mouth out to the end. It stopped it, so I have to delete that last frame so that the mouth doesn't disappear on it right there at the end. So something to watch whenever you run that auto software. I've seen it do that a few times, so now I'm aware it does it. I got to go and watch. I go and look for it now. And again, you could go through those frames there and sync the mouth better by hand. But I'm not. That's not really the goal of this project. So I'm kind of whizzing by all that right now. And right here, you can see that I'm trying to get that to play, but it's failing. I don't know what's going on with that. I've struggled through this right here for a little bit, actually. Uh, the solution I have is less than desirable because I have had multiple audio lines on the main frame, on the main scene, rather, uh,
Yeah, apparently it's so smooth it
play.
won a Grammy for Best R&B
So I know it's
album.
possible. And I'm guessing that there's a way to make them play from their sub scenes. I don't know why that it wouldn't be possible to do that,
Yeah,
but
apparently
I need to
it's so smooth
find
it won a
the
Grammy.
settings, and to do that, I'm going to have
Hey,
to
chatbot, have you heard
watch some
about the new coffee
videos.
we have?
So yeah, see, I'm scrubbing and trying to get it to play the lip sync, but there's no audio there. It's like what the heck's going on? Audio there, no audio from the chatbot. So I
Have you
pasted it
heard
again
about the
and
new
again. So
coffee we
now
have?
I've pasted chatbot's lines in there twice. Still can't hear it. So I'll get rid of one of them. And then what was the Yeah, messing around over there to see if it's on mute or something like that, something crazy. And then I just finally just decide, since it's one line, let's just drag that one line back over here into the first line. And not necessarily the best way to go about doing that.
Have you heard
Again,
about the
this
new
was
coffee we have?
Yeah,
something I'm going to have to
apparently it's
figure
so
out,
smooth it won a Grammy for Best R&B Album.
because it's kind of a pain in the butt to deal with over and over and over again. But that'll be something, that'll be a project for the next video or two. I'll get that figured out. So now you've got camera motion for, I'm sorry, I've added in objects into my cafe lobby. I added some puppets into my cafe lobbies, and they've all got motion. I dropped lines in for a joke into my main characters. And now I'm going to, looks like I'm working the camera again now. So it'll be, you can see that I'm trying to get the camera shot set up for the main characters. This chair's annoying.
Hey, Chatbot, have you heard about the new coffee we have?
Yeah, apparently it's so smooth it won a Grammy for Best R&B Album.
Yeah, if I go nuts, you know why. That is, it's been doing this forever. I don't know why I just don't swap it out. Probably because I'm so used to it at this point, I barely notice. Yeah, I'm going through and basically making a pan out to the purpose of the entire exercise here was to get a little bit of stuff going on in my lobby and see how, put a little bit in each day and see how it reacts, and eventually I'll have my stage put back together again, and it's just ready to tell stories. The focus will be more on the writing from one day to the next then. So, time to render again. One tip, make sure that you change the name. It does not seem to give you an error if you just put the second one out there again, like under the same name. It just overwrites it, it appears. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I haven't rendered quite enough to see, but I definitely rendered uh, something twice to get two different camera motions out of it. And I only found one of them whenever I went to look for it. So I had to go and reset the camera motions up and do it again. And I realized I didn't rename it. Well, Adobe will put like number one or something like that after it. So it'll have the same name and it'll give you a second instance or whatever. So that's kind of what I was accustomed to. I didn't think anything about it. But I couldn't find it. So something happened there. Either I was mistaken about successfully rendering, or I was mistaken about where I put it, or I overwrote it. So I rendered, and I'm fairly certain I cut a chunk of this out again. It's just how much. I didn't really zoom in real tight on these, so I could have left like half a minute in. So bear with me. You'll get to see the whole thing, and then you'll get to see. Actually, I think you get to see it put together next. All right, so that rendered out, and now you are in DaVinci. What the heck is that called? DaVinci Resolve. And DaVinci Resolve replaces Adobe Premiere, and it appears to replace Adobe Audition. Possibly replaces a media encoder, because it actually does create the files. I'm fairly certain it's replacing that. I don't know that it would stand alone and be able to make changes to files for you, but you could run something through it if you needed to. I'm not 100% certain because I haven't messed around in the effects or anything like that a whole lot, but there may be aspects of After Effects in there. So I'm not 100% certain what all it does, but it's been quick and easy for me to get set up and to hop on. I think it actually even asked me if you were accustomed to Adobe whenever I started messing with it, and I told it yes. So I'm fairly certain it laid out preferences that were similar. So, which has made it pretty quick and easy to get going on it here. Not sure why I'm sitting there on it like that for so long. I'm not even in the edit screen yet. I don't know if you know Adobe yet, or I mean, if you don't know. If you don't know DaVinci, then I feel like I'm sitting here for too long. All right. Yeah, my little viewer here to do my voiceovers stopped tracking for some reason. I must have pushed a button. That's what happens when you push buttons. But I'm back on track again. So I'm cruising around DaVinci, and when I opened this file, I had already done some dropped some test files out. So this file has my background audio set up for the cafe, and a handful of other settings already for it. So it's easy just to pull up the last one and delete the video that was on the last one, drop in the new video, and then kind of sync everything back up again, which is pretty much what you're watching me do here. I just dropped in the new clips, the B-roll clip from where I just took a shot of the cafe. So you see me drop in the B-roll clip there. And then we're going to size it and time it. Probably fade it in, things like that. Makes it feel a little softer if it fades in over a couple seconds rather than just pops on. You just play it out to where it zooms in on that table and switches over to this table. And we're going to let it play there for just a little bit because we're going to go do a crossfade onto the other render, which was the other part of the scene, which was the character lines. Now, I'm fully aware that I could have done more camera motions and made all that happen in one scene there if I wanted to, and saved a little bit of render time. But part of the process is on this is the writing process, and whenever you have your stage set up already, which is kind of where I'm trying to get it to, you're waiting you're always waiting for the lines. You're always waiting for what are your characters going to do. So that's kind of what you see there on that. I didn't know what the heck I was going to have these two to say. I just was like, I'm gonna have to say something. I'll have to go talk to Chad about that because I'm sitting here trying to learn this software these days. I'm not writing a whole bunch right now. So I'm like, what are you gonna have him say? I'll just have him tell a coffee joke because that's what they're at. They're at a coffee shop. But at some point in time, you look at what's going on, you read some papers, and try to make something that's a little more palatable. For our purposes here, this is basically just me trying to get ready or get accustomed to the new software, and in the process, put things back together. DaVinci makes it easy to put in fade outs and trim it. I'm going to run the music a couple seconds longer than the rest of it, but I'm going to trim that off with the rest of it and fade it out again. So, yeah, DaVinci it's some sweet software. It's another one. It's like, how are you guys doing this? I mean, you can buy DaVinci too. There's a version of it that's the full blown version of it's got. I don't know if it's a subscription or you actually buy it, but the I bet it's got all the After Effects stuff you'd want. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do to replace After Effects. Possibly Blender.
Hey, chatbot, have you heard about the new coffee we have?
Yeah, apparently it's so smooth it won a Grammy for Best R&B Album.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. Now, obviously, there was a lot of work done prior to what you've seen there to make the stage and to draw the puppets in the stage and all that stuff. But that's pretty much all there is to it. Now I'm going to render the file here. So this is where a media encoder might come in. Now some of these things happen in the background, so you might not even realize that's happening, but media encoder does all your rendering for you. Like Adobe Animate turns them into Flash files still. Actually, they're still like the old school Macromedia, like SWV or whatever that is. I can't remember. It's been so long now, but Adobe's so they haven't even like turned that into their own software. It's still like got Flash backgrounds in it. So that's kind of an interesting thing with that. But the encoder, it passes it off to the encoder and turns it into whatever you tell it to turn it into at that point. Here we go. Get to see that video. Here we go.
chatbot, have you heard about the new coffee we have?
Yeah, apparently it's so smooth it won a Grammy for Best R&B Album.
So there we go. My characters are working, and that's all nice and neat now. So add a little bit more and do it again. I mean, that's pretty much the trick for the next couple of weeks. I guess, you know, I try to put things back together and figure this software out to where it's not so clunky and so rough to run around. Maybe I'll remember some of the words and some of the language that goes along with it. Uh, and that is it. So I got to set up a little more of my stage, and that was fun. And more of my characters are back in line again, so that looks neat. And Tahoma 2D seems to be holding up. I was able to put everything together, and it ran fairly smoothly. I didn't seem to notice any lag or anything like that, and it rendered it. So what more could you really ask for some free software? Um, so that's working out very nicely. I'll keep building on that, adding more characters in, seeing how well it holds up, seeing how far I can go with that, and eventually I'll just be telling stories with my stage again, and that'll be a nice place to get to. But in the process here, you got to see how my characters work. They're drawn in Illustrator, so if you have some illustration software, you can use Inkscape to do the same thing. Save them out as PNGs, each part as PNGs, and then parent them together and create your pivot points to where the pivot points would be, and that's pretty much all there is to it. There's You could do bone structures and things like that if you're going to do a lot more motion and you need them to respond a little more naturally. But for the clunky animations that I make, parenting works out just fine. It keeps things together and it makes things move in fairly logical ways. So, you know, if you're interested in more, then, you know, feel free to ask some questions. I don't know how many more of these I'll do, you know, unless there's a huge response over this or something. I probably won't do too many of them, but because I'm not really interested in this type of storytelling, and I'm definitely not the guy to go to for information on the software. There are much better animators out there. So my process is my process, and that's pretty much all I know. Keep watching my stuff. Thanks for watching this one.